Don't act like you didn't know what you were doing. The words shot across the room, brittle as ice. A boot heel scuffed the warped floorboards, dust spiraling up between the figures drawn together by brittle tension. You always did like to blame someone else, came the sneered reply, strangled by clipped syllables. Her fist slammed a manila folder onto the bureau. Look me in the eye and say it, after everything, say you didn't lie. He barked a laugh. Go ahead, call the feds. Call them now if you think you're so smart. A shadow shifted by the curtained window. The boy's voice, taut but trembling, Mom, the truck S here, they're waiting. She drew a breath, voice shaking. You won't erase us, not this time. Silence fractured as boots crunched on gravel outside, and the old radio on the counter fizzed static. For her, nothing would ever be the same after the moment that followed. But how did they reach this point, marooned in the heart of the mountains, danger closing in on every side? 3 weeks ago, just before the storm warnings began to crawl across the bottom of the local news, Natalie gripped the steering wheel until her hands tingled and stared through the windshield at the crumbling facade of the Bitterroot gas and oil. Its sign dangled by a single rusted chain, the white paint mostly chipped away, the B flickering in the wind. Her son, Travis, slumped in the passenger seat, clutching an empty cereal box and a rumpled backpack. Their world fit inside the battered Honda. 2 duffels, 3 boxes of hand-me-down clothes, a stack of dollar menu burger wrappers, and Natalie's savings account blinking a cavernous $14.02 across her phone screen. Her last check from the warehouse had been garnished by another creditor connected to her late mother's debts. Everything ache she felt was a tally of what she'd failed to outrun: bills, shame. The slow, bone-deep ache of someone who was always one late payment away from sinking. She dug the letter from under the sun visor and read again. To Natalie Caldwell, you are sole beneficiary of property situated on Route 218, described as former Pendleton service station and attached grounds. Details enclosed. She could almost hear the mocking tone of her ex-husband Troy. Congratulations, Nat, your big inheritance. Everyone laughed when they heard what she got instead of the house. That dump's not worth the gas to get there, he'd said. But in the folded paper, she'd felt the rough scrape of a key, old brass, numbered, clearly hand-filed on one side. Travis propped his chin on his knees. Are we sleeping in the car again? Not tonight, Natalie said, forcing brightness. She wanted to believe it. Let's check out our station, never know what we'll find. He snorted, skeptical, but didn't argue as she stepped out and crossed the uneven gravel, the cold October wind tangling her hair. The sound of an engine driving by, someone they knew? No, just a stranger, probably laughing at the sight of a mother and son trying to stake their claim on the ruin at the edge of nowhere. If you've ever looked at something you were told was worthless and wondered what was hiding in plain sight, stay with me. Because this story isn't about what's missing. It's about what refuses to be erased. Natalie pushed the chipped wooden door open, felt the drag against the swollen frame. The inside air bit with the scent of old fuel, pine needles, and time. Someone's laughter echoed in her head, her sister maybe gone years before, Troy's new wife at the settlement, the legal table between them gleaming as Troy refused the single-family photo. Nothing here for you, don't come back. She pulled her coat tighter and stepped forward. Don't let that door hit you, Mom, Travis muttered. Floor looks sketchy. Sketchy's not the half of it, Natalie said, peering past the rusted Coke machine to the shadows beyond. That's when she saw it, an envelope with her name, ink trembling as if written in the cold. It was tucked behind the faded register, heavy and sealed. Hook 1, bright as lightning, someone wanted her to find this. She ripped it open and read in a shaky whisper, If you're reading this, you're my only hope. Underneath was a hand-drawn map, one the lawyers had never mentioned. It pointed to a panel behind the vault in the back. Natalie's hand shook. Travis, look at this. He eyed the map, mouth twisting with teenage skepticism. Bet there's raccoons or a skeleton. She managed a thin smile. We'll take our chances. She stuffed the map into her purse, heart pounding as the sense of urgency flared. This was no ordinary transfer of property. This was a dare. They didn't know it yet, but the roots of their struggle reached much deeper than any old foundation. Before the last of the sunset faded behind the Bitterroot Ridge, Natalie Caldwell would be forced to decide what was truly worth fighting for. It took 2 hours and 3 shivering trips back to the car before Natalie found the flashlight among loose fuses and a gum wrapper. "You ready?" she asked, studying the map again beneath the bulb's weak glow. Travis wedged a brick under the warped door. "Ready as I'll ever be," he muttered, voice muffled by his hoodie. Outside, the wind carried a scraping sound, a branch, or maybe something else. The mountain air always made Natalie suspicious. They moved past the battered metal freezer, sidestepping webs she didn't want to see by flashlight until they reached the wall panel marked on the map. The paint was different, smooth green instead of blistered white. She tapped it softly. Hollow. "Mom, what if it's nothing?" Travis rubbed at his chapped knuckles. "What if Grandma just left us junk?" Natalie felt her flaw rear up, years of never saying no, always showing up for the next shift, afraid of being seen as weak. She wasn't here for a handout, but she couldn't resist a key in a lock. "We're here, we check." She pried at the seam until the panel popped off, almost toppling over. Behind it, revealed by the cone of her flashlight, was a metal wall, bolted, old, marked with a faint logo, Security Deposit First National. Mounted below was a brass keyhole polished by years of nervous hands, the same number as her key. Travis let out a low whistle. "That's not junk." "Let's see what secrets you've been hiding," Natalie whispered, slotting the key. It turned with a reluctant groan. Inside, a chill lingered. Dust curled. There, stretched over steel racks, was a supply of glass jars, bottles with faded labels, packets of dry seed wrapped in wax, worn handwritten tags, marigold, mandrake, skunk cabbage, something called Pendleton's Cure-All. Pushed against the far wall, a battered journal with the words property boundaries clinging to its frayed cover. Travis darted forward, snapping open jar after jar. "Are these drugs or like magic beans?" Natalie shook her head, setting aside the childishness. Then she saw the bottom shelf, a thick bundle of yellowed deeds, the ink curving into a name she recognized, Dr. Richard Pendleton, her grandfather. Below, a kind of diagram, lines scaling outward in directions that did not match the property as described by Troy's lawyers. "Mom," Travis's voice was small, urgent. He'd found a padlocked box wedged behind some jars. The old lock fell open under the key. Inside, a silver mine registry, signed, verified, and stamped with government seals. The address, her address, was attached to a parcel nearly 10 times the size Troy's settlement had claimed. "What the?" She backed against the vault wall, knees trembling. Travis eyed her warily. "What's wrong?" She steadied herself. "Someone else been lying big time." A shadow flickered past the painted window. They weren't alone out here, not anymore. Natalie angled the handwritten map beneath the vault's bulb, deciphering boundaries marked with sharp, persistent lines. The journal, she realized, was the late Dr. Pendleton's, a log neat and clipped referencing seeds and experiments, old miner's herb lore, treatment for acute mountain cough, and references to rare acquisitions protected from company men. Next to it, she found 2 folded letters, the ink dry and sharp. The first was addressed to Dear Natalie, she read aloud, hands cramping. "If Troy or his lawyer ever tell you this land is worthless, don't listen. The boundaries run as far past the creek as they did in 1913. Don't sell. There's more under your feet than you know, and you owe nothing to anyone who tries to cheat you of it." She pressed her palm to her mouth, pulse thudding. Had Troy, her ex, slippery always, lied on the deed? Did he know about this? The cold certainty in her chest tightened. Travis shoved his hands into his jacket. Does that mean Dad stole something?" "Looks that way," Natalie muttered, anger curdling. "This whole time she shook her head, shoving the letter into her pocket. "Let's take the journal and these documents, and keep your voice down." They moved quickly, trying not to disturb the jars and aging boxes, loading everything into Travis's backpack. She paused at the boundary map. "This could change everything, Trav." He avoided her gaze, "Enough to get us out of this place." The door groaned as Natalie pulled it shut. Night pressed in, heavy and cold. The mountain air snapped at their cheeks as mother and son hurried to the Honda through brittle grass littered with pine needles. Their breaths made tight clouds in the dark. When the car coughed to life, Natalie's mind raced. I need to show this to someone who knows land law, but if Troy or anyone finds out we've got these. Travis interrupted her panic. Mom, you gotta hurry. That weather report said the highway would close in like 2 days, right? She swore softly and turned the engine off. We'll go see someone tomorrow, first light. For now, we hide this stuff. Don't tell anyone, Trav, not Aunt Shelley, not your dad, not anyone. He nodded. Should I tell Grandpa's old friend, the one in Hamilton? He always liked you, didn't he? Natalie hesitated. She remembered the tall, stooped figure of Judge Harmon, the only adult who'd believed her stories when she was a child. He might be the only one who would. They harbored the fresh fear of being watched. The mountain silence felt sharper now, huddled in the shadows beyond the car's headlights. Inside the Honda, Natalie scrolled nervously through her contacts, a number she hadn't called in years. Judge Harmon, this is Natalie Caldwell, Richard Pendleton's granddaughter. Can I come by tomorrow? It's urgent. A long pause on the line, then Harmon's slow drawl. Pendleton's place? Something's gone rotten then. Tomorrow, early. Get some sleep, Natalie, you'll need it. She told Travis, we leave at sunrise, don't unpack, we may not stay. He curled up in the passenger seat. Wish you, Dee, never married Dad. She tried to smile. So do I, honey. Her hands ached from holding on so tight to everything she thought she'd lost. Natalie's dreams that night tumbled with old scraps of memory, her mother warning her to avoid legal entanglements, the echo of Troy's voice thundering through courtrooms, and the cold, bitter smile when he'd told her to take her precious ruins and go. But the map weighed against her chest was real, and the storm was coming. Before dawn, Natalie folded the documents into a battered grocery sack, pulled her parka tight, and started the car, tires crunching over frost-rimmed brush. Travis jammed his hat low, peering at the gas gauge. Should I call Mom's friend if something happens? He whispered. Let's hope nothing does, Natalie said, forcing a briskness she didn't feel. But if they ask, you were never at that vault. The drive into Hamilton twisted through icy switchbacks, shadows curling between trees. Travis leaned into the window, mouth tight. Was Grandpa always this weird? Why hide stuff under a gas station? He trusted people, look where that got him, Natalie snapped, then softened. But maybe, just maybe, he wanted to keep it for us. At Harmon's house, a boxy red brick at the edge of logging country, the judge met them bundled in wool and coffee steam. His eyes lit on Natalie with a skepticism honed over half a century of courtroom bruises. You look like you haven't slept since the Bush years, he grunted, holding the door. Let's see what's worth this kind of trouble. Inside, wood paneling glowed with the warmth of an overworked stove. Harmon's daughter, Emily, slid Travis a mug of cocoa and fixed Natalie with a wry glance. Mom says you Caldwell folks always attract storms. Natalie ignored the dig, sliding the sack across the table. You'll want to see these, all of them. Harmon squinted as he sifted through deeds, registry forms, the map. Who wrote you off for the rest? Ex-husband, you say. She nodded, shame prickling. Troy Caldwell claimed the company's lawyers had all the originals. I believed him, couldn't afford a fight. Harmon frowned, reading closely. This document, was it ever shown in probate? See here, signed before a notary with the original stamp. Whoever's been running this grift was banking on you folding, but with this, whole thing comes undone. Emily leaned in, voice crisp. Mom, you need to tell her, Pendleton's not just any old miner. He was the one who negotiated the conservation contract. If that land wasn't divided, half the county's still public domain. Travis piped up, so we get the mine, and Grandma's weird plants. Harmon's gaze flickered. If these records are real and some look old enough to fool the devil, then you're entitled to far more than you were told. This is fraud, plain and simple. But you need to file a formal claim before the courts shutter for winter. Natalie's chest tightened. How much time do I have? Harmon's reply was blunt. Storm will shut this county down day after tomorrow. Timing is everything. She gathered herself, then let's get to work. But the shadows weren't done with them yet. Natalie gripped the map as they stepped out to the Honda, a bitter wind rising. Travis shuffled beside her, anxious eyes darting to a cloud breaking over the mountains. Back at the cabin, Natalie began photographing every document, uploading them to a password-protected folder on the last bar of their data connection. The silence was sharp, electric, like the air before hail. That's when the growl of an engine split the dusk. Travis froze mid-bite. That's Dad's truck, he shouldn't know we're here. Natalie's heart raced. She stuffed her phone in her pocket and motioned for Travis to stay out of sight. The door swung open with a bang. Troy Caldwell, clutching a neon hunting cap and a cardboard box, fixed his gaze on Natalie with a practiced, salesman's smile. Well, look at the two of you, treasure hunters now. His voice was slicked with condescension only years of boardrooms could refine. Natalie faked a brittle laugh. Not hunting, just cleaning up your mess. He ducked his head, dropping the facade for a chilling instant. You want to play dirty, that's your funeral, Nat. His eyes slid to Travis, then back. Why not sign over what's left of that dump? You don't have the cash for lawyers or time to fix this. Travis stood, fists balled. Don't talk to her like that. Troy's smile didn't flicker. Careful, kiddo, grown-up business. Natalie stepped between them. You have no right. You falsified documents and stole what should have been ours. Leave, now. He shrugged, moving closer, voice low. I gave you an out, take it, or you'll miss your window, storm's coming. Her flaw became fire, fatigue from double shifts, anger at being bulldozed, years of swallowing indignity. You always loved erasing people, Troy, wife, mother-in-law, this land, just more assets to liquidate. Troy's mask cracked as he grabbed her arm. You want the truth so bad? Fine, you were never meant to have anything. If I can't sell it, I'll see it burn. Travis lunged. The scuffle knocked over Natalie's bag. Documents slid out. Troy's eyes locked onto the registry. Where did you get this? Natalie blocked him. Not yours, not this time. He pushed past, pocketing an envelope. Natalie's warehouse reflexes, born of never taking her eyes off a moving crate, whipped into action. She tripped Troy, wrenched the envelope out of his hand. You think you're a hero, he snapped. You're nothing. I invested everything and I'll be damned if you and that brat get a cent. She hissed back, if you spent half as much time being a father as you did running your little fire sale, maybe Travis wouldn't flinch whenever you walked in a room. He flinched for once, then spat, don't act like you didn't know what you were doing. He charged out, slamming the truck door behind him. The danger had twisted, no more hiding. Natalie called Harmon. He's coming after us, said he'd burn it down if he can't sell. Harmon's words were clipped, urgent. He won't get the chance. I'll notify the Historical Society and the Federal Registry, but you'll need to bring everything. Storm hits tomorrow night. She nodded, we'll be there. I won't let him erase us. Harmon's reply was brittle steel. That's the Natalie I remember. Before dawn, Natalie ransacked the cabin with Travis, stuffing every slip of paper, seed packet, and deed into their duffel. The plan came together between bites of cold Pop-Tarts. We go to the town hall first, she said. Harmon hands off the evidence to the society. When Troy shows, we lay it all out with witnesses. Travis nodded, eyes wide. What if it goes bad? She squeezed his shoulder. Then we keep fighting, I'm done hiding. They left just as the snow began to whisper down, headlights slicing through icy morning. As they approached the Historical Society's headquarters, a squat, stone structure at the edge of Hamilton, a parking lot full of antique cars and official SUVs signaled the gravity of what was at stake. Inside, paneled walls displayed artifacts from Montana's mining heyday. Harmon waited at a table lined with files, his expression grave. Natalie set the documents down. Ready. He nodded. Soon as Troy arrives, we start. Emily's rallied local press. The society board members are here. No one's walking away from this quietly. She saw him now, tall, arrogant, sharp as broken glass, a man who'd spent years learning to talk over others. In the crowd behind him, a few hard-eyed board members, the local county registrar, and Emily with her camera phone ready. Troy was already snarling. You called in half the county for what, a family spat. Natalie kept her voice steady. You tried to strip my mother's name from the records, lied about the boundaries, sold off parcels from underneath us. This community deserves to know what you did. He huffed, straightening his tie. Prove it. Natalie faced the board. The registry is here. Dr. Pendleton's map original shows the boundaries. The silver mines registry and medicinal herb cultivation, none of it was disclosed per contract provisions. And the so-called fraudulent sale documents, they're right here, signed by your hand. He lunged for the map. Harmon's gravelly voice thundered, "Step back, Troy." The society president raised a trembling hand. "I'll see those documents, Miss Caldwell." Natalie walked through the maze of chairs, handing over deed after deed. A rookie federal clerk bent over the documents, poker-faced. The minutes ticked, each passing second tightening the silence. Finally, the president stood. This land is heritage property protected under state and federal guidelines. It was never Troy Caldwell's to sell. Your actions have voided all claims. Effective immediately, the Historical Society, acting in conjunction with the federal government, assumes stewardship for protection and public good. A cold hush swept the room. Troy went pale. "This isn't possible, I invested." The clerk interrupted, tone clinical. "And you'll forfeit any compensation per Article 14. All proceeds from unauthorized sales will be investigated as fraud." Troy spun on Natalie. "You always did like to blame someone else." She met his eyes, iron in her spine. "Look me in the eye and say it. After everything, say you didn't lie." He laughed without mirth. "Go ahead, call the feds. Call them now if you think you're so smart." Travis touched her arm. "Mom, the truck's here, they're waiting." She drew a careful breath, voice trembling but unshakable. "You won't erase us, not this time." Boots tramped across gravel outside. The radio on the counter stuttered to life. In that moment, with every eye in the room fixed on her, Natalie felt the weight but not the fear. Outside, the world changed shape. She didn't flinch. Troy turned, shoulders hunching under a burden suddenly made real. The county registrar spelled it out. "Sir, you need to vacate the premises. All claims are null. I suggest you leave the property quietly before further charges are filed." Troy spat on the floor, stormed out, doors rattling. His shadow faded in the pale afternoon. Natalie's knees threatened to give way, but Travis steadied her. Applause flickered around the crowded hall, first from Emily, then from the miners, union delegate who'd shown up wordlessly, and finally from Harmon himself. History had spoken, they were seen. By the next dawn, Troy's assets, what remained, had been claimed for restitution. There would be no payout, no golden parachute. The Historical Society filed a public record of his misconduct, protecting every inch of land from being sliced and sold again. The Silver Mine Registry gave Natalie a new purpose. Harmon, with Emily's connections, coordinated former miners laid off after the company shut down. Natalie revamped the old operation with a fierce commitment to sustainability. No more greed, just enough to give the local families a stake again. She opened the greenhouse, passing heirloom seeds and Dr. Pendleton's notes to agricultural students. Travis finally had a place to call home, a roof that did not tremble every time an engine stopped in the drive. In the woods cabin that had once been a punchline, Natalie Caldwell found quiet. And for the first time in her life, she was no longer invisible. Sometimes the land keeps secrets, but it also remembers who tried to save it. Natalie's fight was never about the property alone. It was about planting roots where others only saw what could be stripped or burned. If you've ever been told you were too late, too small, too tired to stand up for what's yours, remember this. Even the most battered ground can bring new life if you dare to look beneath the surface. In the end, the only things worth keeping are the ones you refuse to let be taken. And for Natalie and Travis, the road home ran through the mountains, straight and fragile as hope. By spring, word of the ordeal at Bitterroot traveled further than Natalie expected. Letters trickled in from distant cousins she barely remembered, from townsfolk now emboldened to share old stories about Dr. Pendleton and the station's wild gardens. Some sent seeds, others, family photos or their own stories of lands almost lost and somehow held. Natalie spent the slow mornings in the greenhouse, hands deep in earth, journals spread across the table for translation. She made a habit of reading passages aloud to Travis while they worked side by side. "Listen to this," she said one afternoon, swiping a strand of hair from her eyes. "The wild marigold repels disease in the cabbage rows. A superstition, perhaps, but I have seen the proof. Wonder if that's still true, Travis grinned, trowel tapping the edge of a pot. "It's gotta be. Ours haven't died yet, right? We should test it just in case." She ruffled his hair, feeling the old wounds begin to close. "Pendleton science, I like it." As the weeks budded into leaves and birdsong, the Historical Society made good on its promise. They held a dedication, posting a placard at the old station. Pendleton Legacy Grounds, stewarded by the Caldwell family. A line of grade schoolers visited on field trips, brightening the paths between beds of strange medicinal herbs. The federal clerk returned to watch Natalie sign the stewardship contract, her signature strong, unhurried. Judge Harmon appeared that afternoon, leaning against his truck. He watched Travis race under the pines, laughter echoing. "You did it, Nat," he said, tipping his hat. "Guts and a thick skull go a long way round here, I suppose." She smiled through tears she refused to show. Couldn't have done it alone. He shook his head. "Still plenty left to fix, but you got the hardest part done." Emily joined them, snapping pictures, already discussing next year's planting. "Tourists will want in," she warned. "Pendleton snake oil goes viral and you'll be swamped." Natalie laughed, remembering when a social worker's card was the only stranger's call she'd feared. "Let them come. We'll share, so long as no one tries to take more than their share this time." Some afternoons, Natalie still startled when trucks rumbled up the drive, but it was only deliverymen, neighbors bringing canning jars, or the energy co-op trying to install a new line. Troy's name lingered on a few legal notices, each one dismissed or redirected. She let them pile, unread, in a kitchen drawer until at last they stopped coming at all. Late one May evening, a light rain dotted the aspen leaves. Travis hunched over his homework at the scarred kitchen table while Natalie sorted seed packets. The lamp's glow caught dust in the amber air. He looked up, uncertain. Does it ever get easier, fighting for stuff? Everyone always says it gets better, but... She considered, then went to kneel beside him. "It gets different, not easy. But each time you stand up, the ground feels more like yours, you get steadier on it, and you remember you're not alone." He nodded, and she watched that truth sink in, a slow, strong root. Together they walked after dinner in the meadow, stars kindling above the woods. Natalie let her hand rest on Travis's shoulder. The evening held no terrors, only the scent of wet earth, the pulse of frogs in the hollows. Hope wasn't something squeezed out between bills or hidden in vaults. It was theirs now, broad as the sky. "Mom," Travis said, stopping beneath the old painted sign by the road. "We could fix that, make it say something new." She felt a quiet delight. What should we call it? He scrunched his nose. Caldwell and Son, or maybe home, just home. Natalie laughed, untangling her fear at last. "Let's do that then, paint it together tomorrow." He nodded, the ghost of a smile stretching into something fuller, more certain. As they turned back toward the light in their window, Natalie realized what had changed. The way forward wasn't easy, but it was hers, claimed with all the stubborn hope the mountains could hold. And in the hush between heartbeats, in the gentle spring dark, Natalie Caldwell finally felt what it meant to belong. Early summer came sudden and wild up in the Bitterroot. Green spilled everywhere, quick and insistent as a promise kept. Willow and alder racing to fill the margins by the creek, wildflowers scattering fresh color across the embankment where the old pumps once stood. Natalie and Travis scrubbed layers of old paint from the battered station sign, laughter brimming in the wide, bright air. Sometimes Emily brought sandwiches, sometimes Harmon would swing by just to sit in the shadow of the doorway with a thermos and a dozen stories. The only urgency now in whether the tomatoes would ripen before the deer found them. Late one afternoon, as thunderheads stacked themselves over the ridges, Travis broke the silence with a question that had been circling for days. "Mom," he said quietly, wiping sweat from his brow, "do you ever wish you could go back before all this?" She paused, brush poised, watching a swallowtail tease along the shutters. "Sometimes," she admitted, honest and unafraid for once. "But not to stay. If I went back, I'd be braver sooner. I'd listen less to people telling me what I didn't deserve and more to what was right in front of me." He nodded, squinting at the old sign. "So what do we call it, really? Caldwell and Son, or?" She grinned. "You already answered that, remember? Just home, that's all we ever needed." "Home," he echoed, painting the word slow and certain in bold white strokes. For a while, the only sounds were the brush against wood and the wind in the grass. When the sign dried and the last clouds broke to scatter gold across the field, neighbors drifted in, some with seedlings for a new bed, others with small-town gossip and fresh hopes. Judge Harmon winked at Natalie. "Told you this place would carry your name again." It was enough. Natalie let herself rest, for the first time not out of defeat but satisfaction. Her roots reached deeper now, through legacies nearly lost, through fear and fight and finally forgiveness. Travis leaned his head on her shoulder as dusk pooled at the edge of their land, the word home standing bright above them in the fading day. "You think it'll always last, Mom?" he whispered. She squeezed his hand. "As long as we keep showing up for it, it will." And above the old station, the mountains kept their quiet watch, holding them gentle, even and especially after all that had tried to erase them.